me a little bit about yourself, about your background, a little bit about what My Lisa Inc. is?
Well, My Lisa Inc. began in New Jersey when I was there, and it was an acronym for My Life is So Amazing. And it was basically a women's empowerment group to help women 55 and older to redefine themselves, rediscover themselves, and find new purpose for their lives. As you know, life changes. You know, our identity and our purpose may remain, but it changes as we grow and go into different roles. And what I had found was I had gotten laid off. I was working as a human resource manager there on the Fort Dix Army base, and we got laid off. And when I got laid off, I didn't realize that it was going to take so much more for me to get back into the same position that I was in human resources and make the same monies.
Mhm.
So I ended up going back to school and reinventing myself and finding ways to do that, only to make less money than I was making without the degree. So it was kind of strange how life goes. So that's why when you talk about ageless ambition, I understand exactly what you mean because it doesn't matter our age. We can always I'm sorry, let me get that out of there. Okay. Doesn't matter our age, we can always grow. God always has purpose for us, you know, and though our roles may change, we still have purpose. So the My Lisa Inc. was to help other women get empowered to not feel stuck and not feel useless, you know, so that they can see the value in their current present positions.
Yes, I definitely understand that. I'm 53 now, and I will tell you that I was like, should I even make a power move? Should I even switch careers? I switched careers about 3 years ago. I was a teacher for about 15 years, and I decided to leave the education mostly because of the system, not because
Mhm.
of the medical assistant program that I was teaching at Fortis Institute and American Institute. It was more or less a system. And even then that I had to just learn how to like, okay, redefine, experience that grief part of moving and transitioning into something new.
Mhm.
But Lisa, you touched on something about being passionate about going into My Lisa Inc. What was the spark behind that? And what's the spark behind you launching it in June 2026?
Well, actually, the My Lisa Inc. is a part of a project that I did before. That's what I had incorporated before. Now I'm just going under my name, Coach Lisa Stone. And, you know, I've had many different careers, as you would say, coming up. My background was mortgage financing. And then I went into real estate. I became a New Jersey realtor. And then I did property management. But the underlying toll in all of it, I've always been a faith-based woman. I've always been a Christian, a minister, or, you know, and I serve now as an elder in my church. And prior to that, me and my late husband pastored a church for 16 years. And I did a lot of women's meetups, women's groups, and things of that nature. So that's always been my heart and my passion. So no matter what I was doing, whatever career I was in, as far as making money, my goal has always been to inspire and uplift. And I think my journey from being a single parent, a married woman, separated, divorced, widowed. I mean, I've been in all those stages. So I believe my background, God has used it to help other women to grow and to learn. And I find that when I feel most like myself is when I'm talking to women and impacting and sharing my story, because a lot of people feel like they've been picked out to be picked on, you know. And one of
Right.
the things that I've learned is that we all go through changes and none of us are perfect. None of us do all the right things, but God is always faithful. He's always have the plans. He says, for I know the plans I have for you, saith the Lord, you know, to give you hope in a future. So when we look at Jeremiah 29:11, we know that, you know, we can find hope in the fact that God does have a purpose and a plan. Even for the pains, there is lessons in the pressing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So we always have a lesson that we can take from that if we're smart. We don't want to repeat insanity and just keep making the same mistakes, expecting a different result. But if we really consider how we got in certain positions, whether they're good or bad, then we can see our progress and we can see our growth and we can turn that around to be a blessing and a lesson for someone else. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa, for that. Now, you said something which was interesting. You talked about the changes that happened to you. Can you speak about one significant change that happened to you that impacted who you are today?
I think all of it has shaped me and molded me in some type of way, but I think one of the major changes that I faced about 7 years ago is when my late husband, Elder Michael Cleveland, when he passed away. And so much of my identity and purpose was in being his co-pastor. We pastored together as a husband and wife team. And so much of what I did back then was based on our goal, our dream, our vision, you know. And so I was kind of lost in that. So when God chose to heal him on the other side and take him home, it was a sudden change. It wasn't like I had time to prepare. It's never good. It's never easy, but when you get diagnosed with stage 4 kidney cancer and then you die 54 days later after being a vibrant, healthy man, and we had a wonderful marriage, we were impacting and helping a lot of people. We were growing, we were well suited, you know.
Mhm.
And so when I lost him, I really lost who I was too. It took a minute for me to understand that that was God's will. Because as much as I knew about God, as much as I knew about the word, I was not happy with his decision. Let's just deal with that, right? And everybody said, oh, he's in a better place. Well, he was in a good place then. We weren't, So a lot of the scriptures that I had even shared with other people through grief and through change and wasn't working for me at that moment. This was happening to me. This just happened. So I was very bitter, if you will. you know
Mhm.
God chose not to heal my husband, so I kind of removed myself from the ministry. I sat myself down because I needed time to adjust. And you don't want to destroy your testimony by going out there in anger and saying things like someone would say, I need you to pray for me. And I say, well, I'll pray for you, but I don't know if God's going to do it, if he's not going to do it. His ways are not our ways, nor his will our will. He may not. So you get this little cynical way about yourself and this little attitude. And I didn't want to destroy what God had, allowed me to build. So I had to remove myself from the situation and, physician, heal thyself. I had to do things. And that's how I ended up in North Carolina. I decided to drive down there, didn't know anybody, didn't have any family down here. And I moved to this little town called Rockingham. I
Mhm.
just saw this cute little house for rent. And I drove down there, got a hotel. Next day, I went to the realtor's office and told him I wanted to see this house. 2 days later, I was in that house with a blow-up bed and a TV. Didn't know nobody, never been there, just started all over. So that was a very big choice for me to make and transition for me to make. And I knew I was going to break down, but I didn't want to break down in front of my congregants. I didn't want to break down amongst family and friends. I didn't want everybody trying to help me, to try to tell me how I'm supposed to act, how I'm supposed to behave. I just wanted to be alone, alone in my sorrows, you know. And that was a very bold move to make. So I say to people who's facing fear, you know what I'm saying? If you know that God said he would never leave you nor forsake you, that he would always be with you, even to the ends of time. And even though I couldn't pray, I couldn't do the things I did, it was hard for me to even go to church because church reminded me of the marriage, of the relationship. And it was just another fact that I'm no longer first lady or no longer Pastor Lisa, I'm just Lisa now. Who am I? So finding that new identity again was hard. And I'm telling you, talking about backsliding, You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we moonwalk up out of our situations. You know what I'm saying? I had took a sabbatical. I'm trying to tell you from, and I'm keeping it 100 because everybody, tells these stories about how they just trusted God and how they just prayed and all this other stuff. Well, one thing about it, when you are truly a woman of God,
Hmm.
that's never going to change. God is always in your heart. And I thank God for his grace, for his mercy, for his long suffering with us. I was bitter and angry, you know what I'm saying? But the funny part about it is I would still pray quietly. I would still get my daily reading and sit out on my little sun porch there and read my daily word. I just wouldn't publicly witness and share the way I had so much in the past, you know. And it was difficult, I didn't know anybody, so I started the widow's nest. And basically,
Okay.
why I started the widow's nest was because I needed to talk to other people who had lost spouses
Hmm.
and could identify with the pain and the loss that I had. So that's why I say your gifts will make room for you. Even when you're trying to run, God always, and He just started showing me through the widow's nest how I was there all the time, how I've never left you, I've never forsaken you, that your identity and your purpose was always in me. It had nothing to do with the roles that you played, it had nothing to do with the relationships that you were in. It always was me moving on your behalf. I supplied all your needs. I may have used other people to bless you, but it was me who had you at heart. You know what I'm saying? So these was lessons that I had to learn in the pain, in the relationship with God. He was just always so faithful, so loving. Because I love God since I was 7 years old, I had accepted Christ as my Savior, and I had received the Holy Ghost, evidence of speaking in tongues, because I wanted it. I've always been a little church girl all my life. I've always been the little church girl, and I always knew that I was special to God and that He had a purpose for my life. A lot of times people say, I'm special to God. I know God loves me, but I knew it was like He embedded that in me as a child, the
Yeah.
different things that He took me through and the different stages that I went through. He was always Jehovah Jireh, my provider. That's how I knew Him. That was the God that I knew, the God that makes ways out of no ways, the God who turns it around for my good. So I started this widow's nest. And the way I started it was because I didn't know anybody. I'm an outspoken person. I'm an open person. So I would say, I'm having this luncheon for widows at my home. If you know any widows, let me know. Here's my card. And, I'm going to be preparing lunch. So let me know how many people is going to come. So anyway, long story short, I ended up with 11 women at my home. Were remarkable. I had such a good time with. They became my friends, they became my support system, and we helped each other through that. And we learned to laugh. We learned to laugh at our pain. And at the time, there was no job, so I ended up going to Charlotte, and I ended up starting a TV show, The Widow's Nest, there, and hosting different widows meetups in the different 55 plus communities and homes, talking to the different ladies. And it was beautiful. I was able to talk and share. But now, to bring you up to date, I ended up going on a cruise.
Hmm.
I met my current husband on this cruise. And I know, right? So God has the light.
For you.
Sometimes,
I love
yeah,
that.
that's why you can't rush seasons. You really can't rush seasons because I needed to get that out of my system because you don't want to go into something carrying the hurt from a past. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you always have to, like we talk about ageless ambition. You know what I'm saying? God still had another move. That wasn't it. That was what
Mm.
God needed me to do to get to where He was taking me to. So in that season, I had to go ahead and allow God to know that I'm going to be faithful to you whether you bless me or not because you are God. I'm going to be faithful to you because I trust you and I know
Yeah.
that you love me, and I know that you're working it out for my good.
Yes, absolutely.
So I ended up, like I said, going on this cruise and meeting Curtis, my current husband. And we started dating back and forth. And God allowed him to retire and move to Charlotte. And then we decided we were well suited, and now I'm married. And that's why my name is no longer Pastor Lisa Cleveland. Now it is Coach Lisa Stone. But that was a big transition. That was a lot of hurt and pain to unleash. But he was so patient with me. He would come and set up the sets for my Widow's Nest TV show. He would come and set up when I was doing my widows meetings at the senior places, and he was just always so patient and so understanding. He never complained about me talking about my late husband. But I remember one night I was up and I was working. I had just did a little podcast with someone else, and I was talking, and the Lord said, "That's." And I realized you don't want to overburden someone with something. You don't want to drag them through it. There was a season and a time for that, but it was time to let that go and move on into the next season. God had released me. And plus, I was getting happy then. It was kind of hard for me to keep being sad because
Right, right, right.
I was now in a better place in a better relationship. But I thank God that He sent me someone with patience and with
Mhm.
love, and that was able to make me feel secure enough to let go and try again.
Right. Lisa, I love your journey. I can just imagine you're getting in your car that day when you decided to move to North Carolina. So as
Oh
you're
my
talking,
God.
I'm just imagining like you're packing your things, you're getting in the car, and you're just heading to a destination unknown. God did not tell you that you were going to start this new TV show. God didn't tell you you were going to meet your husband. God didn't even tell you you were going to get accepted to your new home, your new job. You just got on the road in faith. And I hear you talk about healing season, making sure that you're healed, and you actually rebuilt a team of support system around you for that particular season. What advice
Yes.
would you give women who may be widows out there and they are moving into a new season, or they may not be a widow? They just may be in that transition point, almost like at the bridge of their past and their future. So they are stuck right here in the present. What advice would you give them to just move through and that healing process? How long did it take you to go through that healing process?
I would say 3 years till I was able to step back and do something as far as ministry goes. Because, like I told you, so much of my marriage was about ministry. I think that's why God had brought us together with my late husband. It was just always really about ministry. So it took about 3 years, and it took, I mean, I had dated, and I had people said they can't compete with my deceased husband. You know what I'm saying? So one of the things that I would encourage people to do is don't rush it.
Mm-hmm.
Allow yourself to grieve. Don't try to replace something with something. Allow yourself to heal. Allow yourself to get through it. You know what I'm saying? Don't bleed on everybody because of the situation that you're currently in, because you can't get that time back, and the time you waste trying to pretend that you're okay is time that you need to investigate your emotions and your feelings. I would say seek help, get help. Don't lie to yourself. Don't keep saying I'm okay, because you're not okay, you know. And that goes from loss of anything, because loss is loss. Okay. It just so happened to be a spouse for me. But when you're losing a job, I mean, we find our identity in so many things. Imagine being a CEO or a manager in a high corporation somewhere, and you took pride in that. You was like always glad to say, "Oh, I'm the CEO of Bank of America or of some great place," and then all of a sudden your life changed. You no longer have that job. You don't have that pay. You can't do and splurge the way you used to. I mean, I was a spoiled wife, so I didn't even know what food cost. I didn't pay none of the bills. I mean, I was truly a blessed woman, and I thank God having experienced that. And it took me a while coming from nothing, coming from struggling as a single woman, abusive relationships, things that was not happening, to meet someone who could change your life like that and show you God through God's love through himself. You know what I'm saying? Unconditional love like that. And then have it snatched away from you. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like, God, I thought this was my blessing. God, I thought this was it. I thought I had arrived. How am I back in this place again? So
Mm,
take time to identify who you are, understand that your whole makeup is in God, is not in your job and all that. See, so many things we go by the world standards of what success is, what is real, what is the good life. You know what I'm saying? But our life is hidden in Christ. It is in him that we live, move, and have our being. So when we start looking to identify ourselves, the things they change, but God remains the same. So if you can take your time and center yourself, don't go fixing it. Center yourself and ask God. He said, if you have a question, ask me. God is not going to be shocked nor surprised by your questions. And
mhm.
I could be a witness of that, because even though he knew I was grieving, I had a Holy Spirit on the side of me that moans and groans on my behalf, that could cry out. He knew my heart despite
Yeah.
my actions. He
Yes.
looked past my fault to my need. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So we have to always seek God first. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all other things will be added unto you. So I would say to a person that's going through a transition of some sort, don't rush it. Don't be anxious for anything, but through prayer and supplication, make your requests known unto God. He knows. He says, I know the plan I have for you. So why are you wasting time? Because if you're not praying, you're playing. You're playing
Right.
with your time, you're playing with your gifts, talents, abilities, you know what I'm saying? And you don't get that back. So even though we have God still grants us, maybe we're not going to be able to do it the way we used to do it. Maybe some things we're going to have to forfeit, because there's seasons and roles for every place in our life. So stop worrying about what was and ask God, what is it that you want me to do right now? In
Right.
this place, in this time, how can I find joy? How can I find peace? And if you know you're right with God and you ain't doing nothing, you ain't got no business doing, you ain't gonna have all of those, things. But if we keep adding stuff in and piling stuff on our plates, it gets harder and harder to sift through to get to what's real.
Mhm.
You know, and don't lie to yourself. That's one of the things I would say. Acknowledge where you're at, acknowledge what you need, and wait for God so that you can receive it.
I understand that. Now, you talked about this is for the Coach Stone question. What are some of the everyday symptoms that a woman can recognize within herself that lets her know, like, she understands that she's in the midst of transition? But what are some of the symptoms that could be going on that she's just pushing through life and saying that that's life? Let me just
Well,
keep going. Let me just keep pushing myself.
I would say depression,
Hmm.
doubt, fears,
Okay. Okay.
insecurities, comparison, you
Okay.
know, uh, can't be happy for nobody because you're so busy focusing on yourself, what you got, what you don't got, what you need, what you don't need. You know what I'm saying? So some of the symptoms that you need to that you're not moving forward and you're feeling stuck is that you don't have joy when you get up. Nothing is motivating you. You see what I'm saying? Because when we have motivation, when
Yeah.
our life is centered and we have purpose, we know what we're getting up. That helps you to get excited. That helps you to get up and get ready. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't have anything pushing you, then you're gonna be just like they say, letting the day go by. It is what it is. We pick up that, oh, life is just life, and then we be saying, well, under the circumstances. Well, God didn't create us to be under the circumstances. You know what I'm saying? We're
Right.
supposed to be above and not beneath, you know, the head and not the tail. So we have to really just take knowledge to that. You know what I'm saying? How you're feeling, your modes. And, it's a lot of people who commit suicide because they don't want to do the work.
Hmm.
The situation seems too big, and they even though they say God is able, do you really believe that?
Right.
And we know that faith without actions is dead.
Oh,
And if you're not putting any action, you got to put some skin in the game and some boots on the ground. If you want to see change just don't happen because your feelings is hurt. Change happens when you sit down and say, okay, what do I have here? I'm good
mhm.
at this. I'm good at that. I'm good at this. And what is that silver lining that goes through all of it that I would do if nobody paid me to do? It just makes me feel good. It makes me feel alive. That's how you know what that purpose is. Because in all of my jobs and all of my roles and all that, like I shared with you initially, the thing that brought me the most joy was talking and sharing and hearing somebody say, I'm so glad I ran into you. Oh my God, you don't know how I needed to hear that. You don't know how that changed my life. That's me smiling on the inside. That's me feeling like, see, God, I did good, you know, and that's how I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because that's the happiest that I hear when someone says, you changed my life.
Amen to that. So you said something about one step or steps that you need to take. And when you are in a crisis, when you are depressed, when you are in transition, it's hard to even see those steps in front of you. What advice would you give that person who is ready for that one step, but don't know that step to take or how to actually take that step?
Well, like I said, for me, it was in me,
Hmm.
because I had that relationship with God and I had so many encounters with Him. Don't forget to remember, I think when we get in our sad spots and stuff like that, we forget to remember all the times that God did bring us through. See, if you never had an experience with God, all that church stuff and Christian talk is just that church stuff and Christian talk. Okay. But you have to ask yourself, do I really know Him? Do I really have a relationship with Him? Because that's what kept me going. I knew too much about Him to doubt Him. And even though I was going through and I was mad and I was upset, you know what I'm saying? Something on the inside was still believing that this too shall pass. You know,
Just saying.
a joy does come in the morning. You know what I mean? I knew a day was coming when that wasn't going to bother me so much. But I did go back and I revisited some of my papers when I got there in that new home by myself.
Hmm.
Looked through old things that I had written, poems, plays, songs, workshops that I had planned on doing that I wasn't able to do because I was always so busy handling the church business and working and shutting everything down so I could be there for my husband, to be the first lady, to be the co-pastor. You know what I'm saying? And then I sat there one day and I said, you know what? I can actually do some of these things. God has now cleared a path for me not to have to get approval or permission from anybody. I can do some of the stuff that I've been wanting to do. And that brought me some joy. That brought me some motivation and some excitement, and sometimes you need to revisit the dreams and the things that you once had, go back to that, become that little girl again and allow yourself to dream and live and get excited again. It's okay to get excited, you know what I'm saying? And so that was one of the things that I felt joy at. And I started breaking out. I started writing. I started singing again. I had lost my voice to even sing. You know what I mean? Because of the depression, and I started singing again. I started moving. And another thing, go outside. You got to meet people. Stop always sitting in the corner thinking it's going to come knocking on your door. I started taking myself to dinner. Okay. I would go out to dinner and get dressed and go by myself. I found this nice little jazz club called Middle Sea Jazz in Charlotte. And I started going there every Thursday. I would just go. I even got a membership. Okay. And I would just go and I would just meet people. And sometimes when you put yourself out there to meet new people and to people start telling you, you know what? You should go here. Or you know what? They're having this. And you know what? You're having that. And that's the same thing happened when I went out in these streets and didn't know anybody. I just made up the fact that I was having a luncheon. I didn't know if I was having luncheon, but once people started saying they was coming, I started planning for the luncheon. That put my mind on something else. But one of the most things that's so important that we have to remember is don't be so focused on you, because all of our gifts, talents, and abilities is to help others. I heard you sharing that even in your prerequisite to your workshops, and you were sharing a little bit on your video. And our gifts is not for us. Our talents is not our less. It's always God is always using us to bless someone else. So when you stop worrying about your business, God will start taking care of your business. Take care of what you can do your part, and you'll see that He'll start answering and working things out. But nobody is impressed with a complainer.
Exactly. And
Complain and remain, or praise and be raised. This is up to you.
I just love how you talked about remembering, because you have to remember. You have
Yes.
to revisit. You have to go back to those basics that
Yes.
actually grounded you, because
Mm-hmm.
you will forget. Life is happening, everything is
Yes.
moving around
Yes.
you, and you're in a
Definitely.
different place, you're at a different age. But when those periods come in life, you have to go back. I remember God was telling me, go back to the basics, go back to the basics. And
Yes.
I remember,
Yes.
I first came to Christ, I was locking myself in my mom's basement. I was like praying and fasting, and I had all my books out, and I was just reading and asking God to pour into me. And God was saying, when you get to those periods in life, when life hits you, you have to go back to those
You
basics.
do. We make these vision boards and we say, I want to, we got our physical, spiritual, and our mental. We say, okay, I want to live like this. I want to have this, and I want to travel. I want to do these things. I want to have, you know, you are responsible for your life. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else is accessories, because He said that man, will leave you. God is the only one who promised never to leave or forsake you. So there's no guarantee that even if you find a partner, that they won't be gone in a week, in a day. I mean, none of us, you could be gone in a week or a day. You know what I'm saying? So you can't base your life on what someone else is going to do or what someone else is going to add to you. You have to take responsibility and ownership for your choices and your decisions to say, hey, I want to live like this. So what do I have to do to put myself in position to live this life that God allowed me to dream about and envision? He said the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, you know, and He owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. He knows how to take care of what belongs to Him, that He will withhold no good thing from you. So when you know all of these things and you believe it, see, that's the other thing. We can talk it, but can we walk it? You know what I'm saying? But when you really start taking God at His word, you will realize that fear has no place, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and of a sound mind. That's some
Mhm.
clarity. You know what I mean? So if fear is what's controlling you, then you're not walking in God. You're not walking in love, because God is love. Okay. So we have to learn to love ourselves, because He first loved us before we were either formed in our parents' womb. We were purposed,
What
you
are
know.
some practical things that you did during your journey of healing? What were some of the practical things, like everyday things that you did? I know you talked about just getting out, meeting new people, but some people may not even be at that stage of just getting out, meeting new people, because meeting new people is hard, it's difficult. What were some things that maybe you just did in your quiet time out that was practical that you can just pass
I
on to women
walked.
every day?
It was during COVID period. COVID came not shortly after that, and it wasn't like you could do a bunch of socializing anyway. So not only did I have that loss going on in my heart, I couldn't even really go out and talk and do anything because of COVID, right? We were on lockdown pretty much. But during that time, I walked. I had gained weight. I was like up to like 198, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I refuse to be 200 pounds. I'm only 5'3". where am I going with this weight, right?
Okay.
Even though I was like, everybody said, "Oh, you're so beautiful." I was overweight. I couldn't, I had a lot of things going on. I had issues even with my own self, not feeling comfortable in my own skin. So I started walking. At first, that first round around that apartment complex was hard. I was like, "Oh no, this ain't gonna work." But then I set my watch to 10,000 steps. And I
Mhm.
realized if I walked around that complex 10 times, I would hit my 10,000 steps. And then that little thing would come up celebrating with the big powwow, on the phone. And that was my inspiration. I had to see that big old powwow. So through doing that, I went from 198 down to 140. Yeah. Yeah.
Amen to that. Just by
That's
walking.
a lot of weight loss.
Yeah.
And through doing that, through walking, working on my health, drinking water, I was walking, I was drinking, I got up to 5 bottles of water a day, and I was doing that consistently, just walking and just drinking. I was working from home for the bank. So I was in the house all the time, you know what I'm saying? So that walking gave me a chance to get out and be amongst people. And another thing I want to say is when you're out and you're amongst, don't worry about finding people to go with you, because we don't do a lot of things that we want to do because nobody else is interested in it. Right. So we say, I'm not going because nobody want to go. She talking about this corny. She said she don't like it. So
Mhm.
going to not go. But where you go is going to be people who do like it because they signed up just like you. They
Right.
came and paid the fee to go just like you doing. And that's how I would meet people that like to do the same things I like to do because they already there doing it. You know
Right.
what
I
I'm
find
saying?
that I'm more sociable when I'm by myself. Like I tell my girlfriends, I said, I'm more sociable when I just go out by myself and do things. And they were like, how is that? I said, because when I'm out with you guys, I have you guys here. So I'm just talking to you. But when I'm out by myself, I tend to, speak to people I don't know, sit with a person that I don't know, introduce myself. I overly talk and just like want to develop new friendships because I often believe, well, I just believe that you should not limit your friendship circle. There's always new people that God could be introducing you to,
Right.
new rooms that you can be invited into, and
Mm-hmm.
you get out. And when you get out and you meet people and you're sociable, then because God.
You know, I did a 21-day cruise after my husband passed, right?
Oh
My late
wow.
husband. I did a 21-day cruise by myself. Okay. Now,
One
I
day.
went on this cruise ship called Holland America. I did
Mhm.
not know that this was like a senior citizens floating ship. Okay. But who else got 21 days to be on a cruise besides seniors, right? And retired folks, right? So I started seeing all these walkers and canes and wheelchairs, all of this stuff coming aboard. And I was like, where's the young people? Where's our so anyway, I went on there because I was mourning and I wasn't feeding myself and I didn't feel like cleaning up. And on the ship, they do all that. They cook your food, they clean your room, and
Right.
I just needed some time to mourn and be by myself, right? So I went on this cruise and this lady comes over to me and she says, excuse me, should I know you? Are you a celebrity or something? And I said, no. She said, because you always look so pretty. You're always sitting here by yourself. And I said, I'm a widow. I came on here just to mourn. I just lost my husband and I just needed some time to mourn. She says, honey, she's a widow, and screams across the room, right? He comes
Yeah.
over. She says, I tell you, when my husband died, I mourned for years and it didn't change a thing. Didn't change a thing. I should have did what you did. I should have just went on a cruise, had a few weeks, and just went on with my life because it didn't change it. Well, needless to say, because of her mouth, everybody on the ship kept saying, oh, you're the widow. Oh, you're the widow. Now, granted, I was probably the only black one on the ship. Okay, because there was a lot of Caucasians and other races and stuff, and I think it was one other black lady who worked in the jury department, right? So I was literally the black widow on the ship, right? And people kept coming over to me, telling me their stories of loss, and then they would say, "You know what? You're coming with us tomorrow. We're going to pay to take you on the excursion. We're going to show you a nice time. You're not going to be." And they started looking for me, and let me tell you, I met these two wonderful women, Holly and Fifi, and they became my friends. One lady, Fifi, she's a retired hematologist from London, and
Mm-hmm.
she's from Sri Lanka originally, and she flew all the way from London when I after the cruise when I moved here to Rockingham, North Carolina, to stay with me for a week to make sure I was okay. So I
Oh,
was saying, do not limit yourself because you have not met the people that God has aligned with you. And if you keep trying to drag people along with you, trying to make people like what you like, make people do what you do, you're going to miss out on so many great things and stories and friends that God's going to make. He always has a ram in the bush. He will
right.
send somebody. I had all these church members, I had all these church people. None of them knew how to reach me. God sent strangers, okay, into my life. It didn't come through the way that I thought it was going to come through. I just knew that they was going to be they couldn't help me. God sent me strangers,
Since
okay,
you
who
people.
yeah, and poured into me, and they
Yeah.
loved me. They didn't have no idea or thoughts about who I thought I was or who you think you are, you know. And I felt ashamed that I lost my husband in some ways because that was a big part of my identity. And I felt like, oh, they probably laughing about how she thought she had it like that. She thought she was all of that. Now, look, let's see how her life is going to go. But see, that's how the enemy play on your mind. He wanted to keep me trapped in that mindset to where I was closed off and my mouth was shut and I couldn't speak, and embarrassment was keeping me from showing my face. But God know how to reach you. Even when you try, He will send somebody. He had got a ram in the bush, okay? And
Then to
these
that.
became my friends, okay? And I've always been a people person, and like you, I like to talk and share. I could be in the grocery line, and then my husband be like, "You know," I said, "No, she
No.
was just telling." And he'd be like, I was on a cruise ship a few times with him, and I was hugging and praying with people and talking with people. He said, "Did you know her?" I said, "No, she just started telling me her business." So I just started praying and sharing with her. You know what I'm saying? But when you make yourself available, your gifts will make room for you.
Mm,
You just got to have an ear and an eye for God and be able to hear what He's saying and be willing to do what He tell you to do because He got something out there for you. But like they say, closed hands don't. I mean, closed hands don't get fed. You can't
right.
receive hands all up in the fist. You know, you got to stay open. I should write a song about that. You need to stay
Stay open.
stay open, stay open for some blessings because He does
Yeah.
have them for you. You
Yeah.
know.
I love your journey, Lisa. I love your healing that took place. You getting in your car, you just going into your new life God had planned for you. Oh, wow. It's such a beautiful story just to hear it just up front. And I'm sure that women out there are going to be inspired by you, by your story, by your healing journey, your ability to just embrace the newness that God had for you and just stepping
Mhm.
out of the boat, basically, just stepping away from fear and moving,
Yeah.
like you said, you gotta do the steps, do the work. You walked and the one thing I keep hearing is that you had the realization and you realized that you needed something new. You
Yeah.
realized you needed a new circle. God had it waiting for you, but something inside you knew, like, I can't sit here no longer and continue to gain weight. I can't sit here no longer and continue to be isolated. I can't
Yeah.
sit here no longer and continue to grieve my husband. God
Hmm.
has more for me. And I keep hearing that throughout your journey. And I know that God has more for you as you begin to launch my Lisa, Coach Lisa Stone in June
Please.
2026. So, what do we
But I
have
just
to look
say this
forward
in
to?
regards to that because you talked about fear. Do it afraid. It's like Joyce Myers always says, do it afraid.
Was
You know,
afraid.
don't wait for that to subside because God didn't give you that anyway. So you'll never want to operate out of that. Do it afraid, you
That's
know,
right.
because He will not let nothing come to harm you. You know what I'm saying? Trust that. If you don't even trust the choice or decision you have to make, trust that God's going to turn it around for your good no matter what.
Amen to that. So what do
Mm.
we have to look forward to for my Lisa, Coach Lisa Stone in June
You
2020?
love the My Lisa, right?
Yeah, you know my sister's name is Lisa too, so it's like
Okay. Well, it's still always true because life is so amazing, and my life is so amazing, which is worth the
yeah.
and it's not because it's perfect or I have a bunch of material things or anything to that nature. It's just that God has always made a way out of no way, and it's amazing how He shows up.
Look forward to you in June. What are you going to be doing? What do we? How do we get to you in June? The listeners out
I
there.
shared with you, Coach Lisa Stone is being birthed. You know what I'm saying? So I've been working on building my platform for that. You know, doing it. Actually, this is a little. The first person that's gonna hear it is you on here. Did a whole album, wrote songs in regards to my conference for I Am Woman. And that's
Oh,
one of the
okay.
things I'm doing. I want to do a weekend conference for the I Am Woman, and that deals with identity and purpose, and a lot of things that we shared about, you know, and moving forward and knowing who you are as a woman, you know,
Mm,
and I'm excited about that. So God is shaping that story and shaping those workshops and outlines for that and everything. So I'm taking my time with it because, like I shared with you before, we could become anxious, you know, and miss God and run out before God and then get out there. And I don't mean sit still. I'm still working. You know what I mean? Some people just be pretending they waiting to hear from God when they really too scared to do it, right? But that's that, that's not what I'm doing here. I'm very good at doing things. And I know me. I need to wait on God because I need this to work. I don't have time to redo and redo and redo and rethink and revamp, you know. And I've got more business cards and more crap and sites and all kinds of stuff because of ideas and thoughts that I had that was just mine. They had no substance and no purpose. They out
mm,
their season, you know what I'm saying? And there was no longer a reason, you know. So I'm being still, I'm being purposeful at this time. Like I shared with you, I'm currently an elder at Mount Sinai Baptist Church here in Rockingham, North Carolina. And I'm also the vice president of the women's ministry there. So energy has been going through building a Facebook page for them and encouraging them on a daily basis. And I caution myself, and I tell you this, and I tell other ladies this, because we always fall back on what we know how to do when God is trying to stretch us in another area. And He's stretching me with the coach Lisa Stone, you know. And so my safety zone is, oh, I'm still busy. I'm still helping women because I'm the vice president of the women's ministry. You know what I'm saying? And I said, Lisa,
something more.
yeah, you know, I said, don't get yourself stuck. Don't get so caught in building everyone else's dream till you don't build your own and you don't do the things that you want to do. It's okay to be a support. It's okay to be a help. But remember, God designed you on purpose for a purpose too.
Right.
You
And
know,
I love that because so many women, we kind of just we stand in the back and we push other people into purpose when God is saying, I'm trying to push you and you
mm,
push other people because you just don't feel that readiness yet. And I don't think that we'll ever be ready. And I heard you say, do it afraid. Because if we wait till we are
you
100%
right.
ready,
Because
everything
then God is
behind
not leading you.
want this, we want this, we want this, we want this, then we won't ever do it. We'll just be sitting here 5 years later. Okay, still
And
just waiting.
remember, we walk by faith, not by sight. And we want to know. He said, "I given it to you in giving it to you in part." You know, and He does it. He gives it to us in part so that we can communicate with Him, so that we can ask Him the questions. Because we'll just run with it. We'll have a little dream, and all of a sudden, we just know the whole thing. But we want to be led. You know.
God will only give you what you can actually bear, the weight that you can carry. you know,
Hmm.
and the weight that you're willing to carry because you have free will. So he'll just say,
Hmm.
you
You're right.
stay, you just want to stay on the shore? Okay, I'm gonna let you just stay on the shore. I can't drag you into purpose. I can't drag you into the room that I want you to be in. You have to be willing to actually walk into that room because like your faith has to sustain you. So
And one thing we got to remember is that not everybody's called to be on the stage. It's okay.
absolutely
Sometimes people feel like, oh, I'm not doing nothing because I'm not, a big name out there. People not, but God always has other people doing things, and everything is important. Sometimes the gift of supporting somebody, the gift of administration, the gift is so necessary. You know how I pray for God to align me with people to help me do things so that I could just focus on the teaching portions of it and not have to be the whole team. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So it's important for people to know that everybody ain't got to be on the stage. It's just like everybody's not the pastor. You got so many other things that happen before the pastor can even get up to speak. You know what I'm saying? And every part is essential. Everything is necessary. And like I told you before, we have roles. When you're a young mother and you're raising kids, the purpose is to raise those kids, to train them up in the way they should go, because we only got a certain time and season with those kids. And once they go, you don't want the world to raise them. You don't want the TV to raise them. You don't want social media to raise them. So even though you have a dream of being a big celebrity or a big personality, right now you chose to be a mother, and that's a very important role. And you need to invest in that. We can have it all, but we can't have it all at the same time. You have to choose the seasons that God has called you to work in. I couldn't do all of this the whole time. I had a season of being a mother, I had a season of being a wife, I had a season as a corporate woman. You know what I'm saying? I was always a woman of God. I was always full of purpose, but the purpose changed as my seasons changed. And the freedoms came as my things changed. So in your season of mother, then write down those things so that when those kids are going, you don't feel like an empty nester. You can now, like I said, revisit some of those old books, plays, songs, workshops that you have been thinking about. Now maybe it's time for you to do that, but don't ever forfeit motherhood for things. We used to sacrifice things for family. Now we sacrifice family for things. And that
Mm,
has ripple in our society and our children. I've been substitute teaching. That's another thing I did. I went back and got a substitute certificate just because I had the time. And
just doing it all.
child, let me tell you, I went into this school and I realized I am not gifted to be fooled up with these kids today. They is a whole nother breed. So when I say, and even in sharing with women today, what we considered, common sense ain't common no more. What we desire coming up as being ladies and women and wives and things like that, they have a whole nother idea and concept. So one of the reasons, like you asked me why I haven't really pushed the coachly, because I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Because when I talk to some, I'm out of touch sometimes with some of the things. Only thing that keeps me grounded is foundational principles. Because
Right.
it's
You so focus on healing yourself because
right.
nobody wants to meet that pretend person because
Exactly. You can't maintain that persona.
you can only hold up that person for so long before people see like
Mhm.
there's some cracks there, and that's not all what it was supposed.
Appear to be.
I tell people that I'm a natural introvert, naturally introverted. I can actually just chill by myself, and it takes a lot for me to like be sociable. So when God actually started pulling me into circles to speak and to teach and things of that nature, I was like, hold on, you sure? Because I can just sit over here and just write something for you nice and neat. It's like, no, I want you to go to the community shelter. I want you to share. I want you to teach. It took a lot. So, I definitely believe like, being
I
your
think I'm a mixture of both introverted and because I have so many conversations going on in my head sometimes I don't even realize I ain't talked to nobody all day. I just been in my own space and in my own mind doing my own thing. But it's
Yeah.
so that when I do go out, I'm prepared to give. You know what I'm saying? To give some type of wisdom, instruction, or something to that nature. But people would assume that I'm this big, lively person, but no, I'm living out here in the country with deers and carrying on all around. You know what I'm saying? It ain't like this big metropolitan city girl. You know what I'm saying? I've learned to enjoy peace and quiet, so that I can have that time that when I do have to be out in those circles, I'm out there with purpose, not just in the street. You know?
Mhm. Definitely. I love that. I love your journey, Lisa. Just like I said earlier, I love your journey to healing. And now you have a blossoming new marriage, a new relationship. You have
Yes.
a coach coming June to 2026 to the ladies out there and other endeavors. I just love that for you. I love how you were intentional about just like making sure that you didn't, like you said, don't jump out there, wait for God. And how even like now you're like, I'm taking my time with coaching because I want to know what I'm doing. And I
That's
love
right.
that you are
That's
at
right.
that space right there and you are getting ready. And I can't wait to hear June 2026 and for the conference and things like that are coming along. I'm definitely going to
Yeah, the
be.
conference will probably be next year, but God said count the cost. So, even though He gives us vision and He tells us to run with it, we got to count the cost. It takes something, not just finances, but time, energy. If you have families, how is this going to impact them? So you gotta look at all those that depend and rely on you, and make sure, because God is not the author of confusion. So you want to make sure that everyone's aligned and aboard, so that you're not out there and then hearing a bunch of complaints at home, because you got to have some peace at home, right? So you want to
Right.
make sure that everybody is, where they are. But I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you to take stepping out and
Thank
doing this.
you.
Even though you call yourself an introvert, I think this is wonderful that you're expanding yourself and making yourself available.
Both, a little bit of both.
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah, yeah. I had High Tea was the first podcast. I was going into people homes and things like that. That was pre-COVID.
That was
And
cool.
that for a few years. And then I went back to school. And I remember my aunt said, you can't do everything. You're going to have to shut some things down to focus and finish your degree. So I was like, okay, let me stop and go back to school, finish my degree. And then fast forward, a couple people came to me and prayerfully, I was like on that fence. Like, I'm just waiting for things to go perfect. Oh, I need me a podcast room. I need this. I need that.
Oh
And people
God,
said,
you sound like me.
listen, you can't keep waiting for everything to be perfect because everything God is going to develop in the imperfection pieces, and I was
And
like,
look what you end up using, your telephone. It's like me. I bought all of this lighting system. I use all this lighting system. It's not up now, but I purchased all this stuff. I got the moving camera that moves when you move. I
oh,
bought
yeah.
all this stuff. Ain't used none of it. Still using it.
But today, I'm hoping that my audio is okay because I brought these wireless microphones. It's sitting over there. I'm like, I didn't even. God just helped me. That's all I can say.
I waited so long till the technology is not even necessary anymore that I had purchased, you
Oh,
know.
right.
But we live, we
That
learn.
360, you got that 360
Camera thing, yeah, the stand that you put on and it's supposed to move when you move.
yeah, I saw that. I was like, that's gonna be nice. I can't wait to see that because it's gonna just follow you around the room while you're
So I was
talking.
doing these little series on cooking, and I was like, I need to have something that moves when I move. Girl,
Yeah.
I think I got too much time on my hands. So I thank God that He's narrowing it down for me so that I can stop being so multitasking over here, trying to do too much, like you said, trying to do too much at one time.
Cook a Sunday high tea lunch.
Look at you. You like that high tea. What kind of tea you said you had? Lavender camel? What you had the other night?
Chamomile lavender.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an organic tea that I found in Whole Foods.
Mhm.
and it's so relaxing. It's like,
It
that's,
sounded good. I said, ooh.
yes, yeah. And I used to actually add tea, milk, not tea, but I used to add milk and honey to my tea, and people
Oh,
was
I
like,
love to do
"Wait
that.
a minute, you taking away from the actual tea?" So I just started just drinking
I would
just the
do that with chia. What was that tea that I used to get? Chai. I think it's
chai
yeah,
tea. Yep.
chai. Yeah, I would do that, and I would put the milk and the honey in that. That was
That probably was really good.
but
Well,
anyway, I appreciate you. I really do. And
I
I'm
appreciate
excited
you.
for you. I celebrate you, and I look forward to God doing awesome and great things with you and those that you bring on that, we all can be a part of the journey of success for ourselves and for other women.
Yeah,
It's so necessary today. Every voice counts.
yes, yes. I definitely believe that because the segment that I did last week was with a young lady, and she does Afri prints, and her name is Bernice, and she is in the community, and she's doing her thing, but then also she's a wife, she's a soccer mom, she has all these hats that
Task.
she wears, but when you see her, she looks Grace. Like Grace has given her the ability to wear all those hats. So I
Right.
definitely believe her story will inspire someone. Your story will inspire someone who is, going through the transition and looking
Mhm.
for love and dating themselves and healing and things of that nature. So
Mhm.
every
Definitely.
story
Just
has,
don't give up. What God has for you, He has for you. Don't
yes,
limit yourself through your mindset and different things like that. Believe God,
that's,
and enjoy the journey.
yeah, enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the
Enjoy.
journey.
Yes. So, any last words that you want to leave Ageless Ambition audience out there?
Well, I thank you guys for listening. Those of you who joined in with us today, I appreciate you coming aboard. And like I said, pray for me, Coach Lisa Stone, as I move forward. And God will continue to allow me to have the boldness and the insight and wisdom to do what needs to be done to be a blessing to people today. That's one of my biggest concerns. And I pray that you're happy. I pray that you know who you are, and that you have purpose in your life. And stay motivated and do what God called you to do. Die empty.
Yes. Listeners out there, I thank everyone for tuning in on today to Ageless Ambition, to Coach Lisa Stone. And I look forward to our next session. Take
All
care.
right.